Hi there. Before we begin today's episode and dive right into today's movie, which I'm sure a lot of people are excited to see, I'd like to first mention that in honor of Red Ribbon Reviewers, I'd like to talk to you a little about the Lupus Research Alliance. It is a non-government and non-profit organization whose goal is to raise awareness and funds for lupus research. Lupus is an autoimmune disease that affects the body's immune system. While there currently is no cure, the Lupus Research Alliance has been finding ways for one, as well as creating improved treatments and moving towards diagnosing those with lupus better. And considering there's a family member of mine so dear and close to me that has lupus, you can only imagine how important this organization is to me. For more information, I highly recommend you to visit lupusresearch.org. And now, on with the comedy.
Standing in the middle of nowhere, wondering how to begin. Lost between tomorrow and yesterday, between now and then.
Classic, now, Judy. I mean, honestly, what can you say about Animaniacs? It's one of those mini-shows in the 1990s that revolutionized animated shows by means of humor, quirk, satire, and education. There was nothing like it. And yet, I don't know how to express the impact it left on us. The show is good enough on its own, and to dedicate an entire vaulting episode would be maddening. There's too many episodes to go over, and yet there has to be a way to somehow pay my respects to the cast and crew that made it all more possible. I must find some way to add my positivity to the enthusiasts. But how? Look. Wakko's Wish. Of course. Their big magnum opus. How can I overlook that? Ah, well, one little revisit shouldn't hurt. You think? During the show's run, no one would ever think the idea of making a full-length Animaniacs feature film would be possible. Of course, there was an attempt to make some theatrical shorts, but that didn't go so far. Animaniacs was an ensemble show, so the big question was who would get the focus and what would be the story. Obviously, the Warner siblings were the centers of the show, but what kind of plot would work for them? Well, according to Tom Ruegger's blog, there were many ideas drafted and many outlines created. Sadly, they went unused. Just seeing these poster designs really shows a lot of promise. I think my favorite one that never got made was the Wanders causing havoc at Santa's workshop. Just by that premise alone, I would love to see that come to fruition someday. The only one that kinda, sorta, actually got made was Hooray for Hollywood, which was turned into the series as a two-parter called Hooray for North Hollywood. On a side note, I highly recommend checking that out, as it's a nice little sweet love letter to movie making in general. Though on the speculative side, it's got me wondering if it was used as some kind of ventilation, considering that the executives would not allow a theatrical Animaniacs movie to be made. Again, this is all pure speculation, but if the people at MST3K can vent about how the executives at Gamma Racy screwed them over during the production of their movie...
I come to you with a movie. You supposedly get me $30 million to make it. You take $29.5 million for yourself. I get a lousy $800. I don't get any credit, and my movie's released as a trailer.
Eventually, elements from the unused movie concepts would make their way into one feature-length production. To date, this is the only Animaniacs movie that was made. Considering how the show was doing at the time on the WB, this could have been a great way to continue the series. At the time, Warner Brothers was more interested in placing anime on their Saturday morning lineups to hook a younger audience. Another supposed reason for the show's cancellation was that Animaniacs was bringing in older viewers instead of their targeted younger demographics. Though I find that really hard to believe, considering the show's target audiences were for younger and older audiences. But hey, if the show's gonna end, why not go out on a movie?
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Interestingly enough, when the movie was test screened, it was highly rated with parents and children. But Warner Brothers decided to release it straight to home video instead. Wow. That's sad, considering Steven Spielberg really pushed for a theatrical release. But why would they do that? There's a possible theory I have as to why. At the time, Warner Brothers Animation Studio was edging to make a mark on the animation industry, and it didn't work so well for projects like Quest for Camelot and the cult classic masterpiece The Iron Giant. From what I understand, and don't quote me on this, was that no higher-ups had any solid experience behind how to run an animation studio or even know how to sell an animated movie. Granted, Wakko's Wish was made under a different animation studio and production team. Still, I kind of wonder and slightly argue that perhaps this prior experience with these features might have played a part in Wakko's Wish not getting a theatrical release. Or maybe it's just speculation. Well, I guess it doesn't matter whatever the reason was. Wakko's Wish was practically dropped into the home video market. And worst of all...
No advertising! Wow. The hell?
Yep. Warner Brothers didn't even do jack all to make its existence known. And worst of all, it was released on December 31st, 1999, a little after the Christmas season. What makes it even more worse, it was released 15 years after its home video release onto DVD, with no supplements, and far beyond during a time when certain great talents who worked on this movie sadly passed away. But it did get heavy airplay on Cartoon Network, and the movie has its share of fans who believe this is the true series finale. Are they right? Is this truly the magnum opus that Animaniacs fans have been waiting for? Right from the start, this falls into the perfect play of what a TV series-based feature film should do. Go outside the boundaries of the show and do something to expand on the universe of these characters. So as a film adaptation, it fits the bill. It follows the ensemble theme of the series and uses major trademarks Animaniacs would do. Even the story actually works. For the most part. It's set during the fairy tale-style village Acme Falls, a once prosperous place that has fallen victim to the evil and greedy King Salazar of Tiktakia. Oh, I get it! It's a jab at the Time Warner stuff! Subtle. The town is overtaxed to the bone, leaving the Warners and everyone broke, especially the mime.
Well, no place is perfect.
Wakko tries to earn some dough from hard labor to save his ill sister, but that doesn't work out. Instead, he wishes on a star and is told by a fairy from the falling star voiced by Ben Stein. Okay, I have to admit, the use of callbacks and casting on characters like this keeps me in a deep laugh and smile.
I'm your desire fulfillment facilitator.
Huh?
Well, I used to be called the Good Fairy, but that sounds so old-fashioned.
Anyway, the Ben Stein fairy tells Wakko that in order to make his wish, he needs to go where the star landed and claim the wish. Once word gets out, The whole town and even the bad guys race off to see who will get there first to make their wish.
Maybe we should have kept this our little secret.
On paper, this is a great premise that could easily work for the series. It gives us the chance for a lot of our characters to play around with this environment, and even give some fan favorites to shine once in a while, too. But there's a problem I have with it. Okay, more so a nitpick, and it's a pretty big one I have. Animaniacs houses a ton of them, and to allow each of them equal screen time is near impossible for an 80-minute movie. But I can't say they don't try. It's a lot of fun to see our favorite pair up and interact with the others. Yet somehow I kind of wanted to see a little more of that. Yeah, the Wonders are our main leads, and I can't argue that. Wakko is the kind-hearted goof, Yakko is the mouth who is down to earth, and their sister Dot is the heart with the occasional cute comic relief. Easily they fit right into their juvenile selves as they were in the show. Little, if anything, has changed about them. They're still funny, and you can connect with them. In fact, this is one of the few times I've actually seen them work together as an actual family. And that intrigues me. Unless there was a certain episode I missed in my 99-episode binge, which, do correct me if I'm wrong, but this just feels like the only time where they actually work off each other as an actual family without any comedic tones. I also do give credit for juggling around this big cast of characters as well as trying to figure out when to focus on who. Some of them do work, like Theta's plots and Ralph, because the story elements allow them to be perfect antagonist foils. So to see them as the Taxman and the Law of Acne Falls fits their characters. But if you're expecting others to get equal share like Otto Scratch and Sniff, Hello Nurse, Rita and Runt, Buttons and Mindy... How those two annoy me. Slappy and Skippy Squirrel, Minerva Mink, the Good Feathers, the Hip Hip Hippos, and a couple of others, you might be slightly disappointed. I know the Warner siblings are the main course of the show and movie, but without these others, it doesn't feel like a true ensemble. And they really try to find ways for them to get equal time, which is never easy. The best example I can give where something of this similar caliber worked was the Star Wars episode from Pinky and the Brain. While a solid parody of Star Wars, it packed every character it could, and rightfully paired them with the appropriate Star Wars counterpart they were intended to parody. It worked because you can see characters like Slappy as Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Wakko as Luke Skywalker. It was solid casting, and the parody picks don't overstay their welcome.
Use the Gookie. Diffuse tense situations with humor. It works many times.
However, for an 80-minute movie, there's so much you can do. There are certainly bigger opportunities here, but something feels a little short-ended. I'm not saying I'm disappointed at all. I'm glad to see what they could do with all the characters they have, but something tells me they could have allowed a little more breathing room here and there for certain characters. The only characters I feel that get nearly as equal time as the Warners is Pinky and the Brain. I could be wrong, but it feels like they do. And trust me, I really enjoy these two. The chemistry between Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson never ceases to amuse me. But when you develop a lot of time on these two lab mice who plan to use a flying machine to reach the wishing star, when you could have had spent a bit more time on the other characters, really says something to me. On the other hand, a lot of the character motivations are simple in order to make the story easy to follow. So to build into something with dramatic weight would be difficult. Scratch and Sniff is trying to make his elixir taste good, Hello Nurse wants to be seen for her brains and not her looks.
Hello, brain!
I am not amused.
Slappy and Skippy want a better lifestyle, Plots wants to be king, the Good Feathers want respect, Rita and Runt want a home, and Pinky and Brain want to rule the world.
Yes!
Although, the other townsfolk join in on the main run, and it's either just to have them make a cameo, or simply because it's not Animaniacs without them. In fact, midway through the movie, during their big race, they kinda disappear, which feels really weird. And they don't even appear until the start of the final third of the movie. Case in point, they get Julie Brown to reprise a role as Minerva Mink, but it's only reduced to a small, extended cameo/singing role.
He went to seek his fortune, and now he's returned. Something weird and something strange.
Beyond the farthest mountain range.
I understand why they didn't use that character in the original or the show, given she had a short run of 2 cartoons and some minor appearances here and there. But considering the controversial nature of the character, why even have her here? Was it just to please the fans, or at least find some material to work around with her? I mean, she's got the Dover boys following her around, so that should at least allow for something to work. But the fact they just do little all with her, it just feels weird having her in there.
I gotta get a new agent.
P.S. Please check out Julie Brown's material. I feel she's highly underrated today.
Show us how you get oral with a guy with this banana.
Is kid stuff. This is more like it.
I bet each of you $5 that you just imagined Minerva doing that to the watermelon. Don't act like you didn't. And Buttons and Mindy are there because it's not Animaniacs without them. And it follows the tradition of Mindy wandering off and Buttons going after her. In fact, you could have easily cut them out and the movie would have ran fine. And I'm not just saying that because I'm not a big fan of the Buttons and Mindy segments. No. Just the fact that every single time it ends with Buttons not getting his due and always getting scolded after, and Mindy gets off scot-free after the harrowing dangers they had to go through, and the many times she could have perished, and the moments when Buttons was going after her, and how the mother is just, shame on you, Buttons, shame on you, no food for you, It gets old. Again, most of this is all nitpicky in retrospect, and these are things I can live with. A lot of this movie is based on the comedy classic, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. A group of people going off to find buried money in a state park. That to me is the ultimate ensemble feature, and it works beautifully. You can understand why everyone's in this chase, and no one feels short-sighted. Even the minor characters feel like important elements in that plot. If you cut anyone out, the movie would not flow as well. It'd be too disjointed. And you even get these side plots which play to the characters' quirks and weaknesses. I kinda wish there was more of that in Wakko's Wish, just seeing these characters play off each other more. And you sorta get that in this stretched out 8-minute sequence where there's a little dialogue going on. They cause things to happen like bridges to collapse or an avalanche, and there are some moments when they cause havoc to each other, or save one another. Unlike the characters of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, the ones in Wakko's Wish are not actual jerks and malicious to each other. Granted, they do get a musical number where they talk about what they want to wish for, and that's really kind of about it. Other than that, they're just pretty much going from their own village to the mountains and to some snow caps just to meet this wishing star. So, really, this movie is not about the journey. But it is a musical. The score by the late Richard Stone fits the Looney Tone perfectly. I always like to hear his score whenever I watch any Spielberg-produced series. Except Hysteria, but that's a whole other story. The great Stonini really knows how to add the comedy and emotion of a scene beautifully. Whenever I hear the xylophones and the Pinky and the Brain segments, it just feels like an intense Bernard Herrmann score. And his work on Wakko's Wish is no exception, as it really adds to the big and emotional feel of the movie. It's like listening to a more demented version of Jingle Bells. It was conducted by Jerry Goldsmith. But there is heart. It's one thing to have visual gags and witty wordplay, but without the great Stonini, I can't think of any other conductor that'd be perfect to do this. The songs are also a worthy highlight too. After seeing this movie, you can be guaranteed these numbers will be planted deep into your brain. The will of a musical is for characters to discuss their feelings or move the plot along in song. And a good majority of these numbers do exactly that, but perhaps too well. For the first 15 minutes, with the exception of spoken dialogue from the narrator and supporting characters, it's just wall-to-wall musical numbers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, Oliver did it too, with a good bulk of its opening being one number after another. But it's also important to have dialogue among your characters too. I have no issue with the opening song, Never Give Up Hope.
You gotta cheer up and never give up hope.
We can't grow.
I'm fine with the Hey Penny number.
'Cause he's got a hey penny today.
hooray!
Wakko's wishing song is cute because it's short and sweet.
Wishing star, please hear my plea. Grant one wish for me.
The Wishing Star song and Hungarian Rhapsody are being constantly hummed in my head.
The wishing star, oh yes we are on our way, so we'll say bonsoir. Ciao you guys and au revoir. Now we're off to the wishing star.
So it shows how much they're working their charm on me. But in between those moments, we don't get much talking from our characters. Once in a while there's a short 30 or 45 second song that could have been easily done in dialogue to give our characters more polish. Why do we need a song from the townsfolk saying about Wakko coming on a train? Why do we need to hear about Wakko losing his hay penny in song? The brief reprises of the Wishing Star song sort of work, but again it feels a little more like padding. It would be like if in Little Shop of Horrors they would have a number where Seymour asks Audrey out on a date right after the Some Fun Now song. You could do that, but it would get in the way of the dentist number, and it makes more sense to feel what the characters are going through in dialogue for such a small scene. For those who have absolutely no idea who or what Animaniacs is, which I believe that's near impossible, I feel like that newcomers going into this movie not knowing much of the show will be a little uncertain how to feel about these characters. I kind of feel like maybe a little more extra dialogue and talking points would help them develop a little bit more, but on the other hand, music was a really key component of the series, so I really don't have any big issues with that. But there is something I do have a true issue with, and it's the villain, King Salazar. He's not very interesting. I will admit right off the bat, I do like the design of the character. I don't know if this was intentional, but he looks like every Disney villain molded into one. He has the eyes of Maleficent and the Queen from Snow White, the face of Captain Hook, the build of Gaston, and is it just me, or did the voice actor eat George Sanders? You know, the voice of Shere Khan.
I don't want to see them again, alive. Fetch me the rats with wings. And now it's your turn to get it. How delightful.
But outside of that, and some scenes of the Warners, he's kind of boring. I get his plan is to get control of the Wishing Star and be greedy, along with his character being a parody of all the Disney villains, but they play his character as straight up serious, and it kind of bugs me for some reason. The Warners have come across some mature baddies in their time. Heck, they even went up against the Grim Reaper and the Devil. But what always worked for me in those moments was how these characters with a serious mindset often fell victim to the juvenile actions of the Warners. And they do that in a very funny scene here when the Warners play on the king's interests of what he wants to wish, which has some really good laughs.
No, I'll wish for $1 million. No, make that $2 million.
Just be glad it's not mating season.
Bombi's mom is ew, ew, ew. But outside from that, he doesn't really do much for me. I honestly feel the main antagonist should have been Mr. Director. And yeah, they gave him a tiny cameo that is pretty funny, but how more interesting that would be if he was the baddie instead of this. When you consider how much the Warners did to his film productions, it makes sense for why he would want to go after them. And for an Animaniacs movie, this gets pretty dark at times.
Just like their parents.
Huh? What?
I should have gotten rid of those kids years ago when I had the chance.
What a twist? Okay, it's not bloody or anything, but I guess they're trying to emulate the parody and cliches of a Disney fairy tale movie, and most of the time, it does work. It not only replicates the formula, but even goes as far as to parody the cliches, tropes that we so dearly love, and like to grind our teeth over. But just how far does it have to go? There's a subplot where Dot's sick, and they never reveal what the illness is. And at times, it actually feels like the driving force of the story. But when you do find out what the illness is, it's kind of a disappointment. I won't spoil it for newcomers, but for all the serious build-up, why go this far for something that is not really major in hindsight? I mean, sweet pub cheese! There's a moment where Salazar puts our characters in a concentration camp! I mean, okay, they don't explicitly say it, and you could argue it's trying to mimic The Great Escape, but no. It's a concentration camp. I don't care what you say to prove me otherwise. The minute you see that barbed wire fence, you can't get the image out of your head. Granted, it's a little subtle, and it's not painfully obvious like some other movies, but man, oh man, oh man. Oh, and by the way, thanks for giving me this image to help remind me of what the mink population of Denmark had to go through in 2020.
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
There's also a moment near the end that is just hard to not get sad over. Again, I won't spoil it for newcomers, but something happens to a certain key character, and it's one of the frickin' saddest things I have ever seen since Grumpy losing it over the death of Snow White.
Golly gee, a single tear rolls down my cheek.
And then a beat later, it's revealed to be this gotcha moment. What a tease. On the other hand, it kinda does subtly link to Yakko's line earlier.
How is she? Not great. Those acting lessons never really sunk in.
But it's so over your head on first watch that when this bigger moment does happen, you kind of feel cheated that it just toyed with your emotions like that. So, for all my nitpicking and overanalyzing, does that make this movie bad? Absolutely not. And that's because of the movie's message. The heart of Wakko's wish is simple. Never give up hope. No matter what happens in life, there was always something good bound to happen. Even in times of failure, there is bound to be a time when things will rebound again. There will be days when things will suck, but there will be days that will feel like an improvement over the bad days. It's always important to hold on to that tiny fraction of optimism, because life is just. And honestly, I really feel bad for all my nitpicking and critiques about this movie. I shouldn't, it's just my opinion, but there's one major reason as to why. This movie came out when I was 9 years old, and at the time I was switching over to bigger things like Indiana Jones and South Park. And when I heard they were releasing an Animaniacs movie, I didn't think much of it. I was so overwhelmed and sanitized by the direct-to-video movies that Disney and The Land Before Time created that I just sort of rubbed it off and said, oh, not one of those kinds of movies. Typical. Maybe it was released to theaters, I'd have a different change of mind, but back then, anything that went straight to video I just thought as something of lesser quality. But I did watch it on Cartoon Network when it aired on Cartoon Theater, in bits and pieces more or less, and I thought it was fine. I didn't think much of it back then, but I wish I did. Considering how so much effort went into this, and how everyone wanted to make a really, really good finale. In fact, they never got the chance to make any more of these. And here I am, 30 years, revisiting this show, and just finally realizing now how much so gracious and beautiful the talent was. Not just in the humor, but the writing and the animation, the time, the energy, the music, the speed, just the way they gave it their all to make something great entertaining. And the fact I just shrugged it off is low. There's just so much in this movie. Music, heart, a really funny Dennis Hopper impersonation, Julie Brown, and a good moral to boot. Oh, great Warners, how could I have forsaken thee? That's why I made this web series in the first place. To remind myself and you that great things like this exist. There are Animaniacs enthusiasts out there who remember this movie fondly, and I hope over time there are others who feel the same. Before the reboot on Hulu, we had this as the ultimate close. I do feel like this movie could have been something bigger, but I'm okay with the final result. Despite the minor problems I have, it still feels like a satisfying finale, because there are some really funny jokes, some hum-worthy songs, and legit heart here. For fans of the movie, this was made for you. For everyone else, yeah. Actually, no. I know this is a really tough decision, but I can't recommend this. To newcomers, that is. Fans of the show will no doubt love this, but to those who haven't seen a single episode of the series, my advice to you is to watch all 99 episodes and then jump into Wakko's Wish. I know it sounds like a chore and this might be a little crazy, but believe me, sometimes it's not about the journey, it's about getting to something really, really good by the end. And knowing how it ends a lot of loose ends and gives a great send-off to tons of good characters, despite the 2020 revival that happened as of recent, it still works as a perfect series finale. Please, I beg of you, watch the show first, and then the movie, because it feels so rewarding by the end of it. And as for me, well, I gotta admit, 125 episodes and I see no end in sight. In fact, I've been doing this for over a decade now, digging up these fossils and preserving them for the best of all is no easy task. And yet, looking back on it all, it's such an amazement to see how long I've lasted online. Because that's what I've been doing since day one. Making sure that you and I remember these movies very well, no matter how good or bad they become. Or are, for that matter. To think, it only feels like yesterday when I created my first episode.
Oh, hi. How you doing? Welcome to my very first episode of my very first web series, Vaulting. Is that once a month I'm going to appear. Hello. And I'm going to talk about just simple, nostalgic, film buff type of material like TV shows, movies, and the interesting tidbits you didn't know about them.
One of the problems with internet critic review shows today is that the critics tend to over-exaggerate or flat-out lie about their opinions to appeal to the masses for comedic effect. And I never got that with Vaulting. Vaulting has always been one of those honest and true, down-to-heart shows.
It doesn't do the whole caustic critic thing. I mean, sure, it started off like that in some of the very, very early episodes, but then as the series came back, you notice that Morgan has a love for film and also loves doing the research for what goes on behind the scenes.
I learned things through Vaulting that I would never know anywhere else. And that is hands down the greatest gift that the show has given me, was to be able to say, hey, I know this about Waterworld. Hey, I know this about my favorite movie of all time, The Wizard of Speed and Time. And it's all because, you know what? Someone was able to actually go behind the scenes and research it.
Vaulting has been around for a very long time. Over 10 years. And when other web shows kind of feel like they're getting stale, I feel like with Vaulting, it doesn't really get stale. I feel like it's like a fine wine where the longer the show has gone on, the better it has become.
I think what I personally love about Vaulting the most is that it keeps the spirit of classic online reviews alive. The kind of reviews that you would normally find 10 years ago that are equally as entertaining as they are informative, where it's much more than just talking about a movie or a TV show, where like you got a little plot line going on, you got characters going on, you would often see collabs, people working together to create a fun little production with the central theme of talking about something that they are passionate about. And it's kind of unfortunate that you don't find these kinds of reviews nowadays, but it's nice to see that after all these years, that you got someone like Morgan still doing something like vaulting and keeping that spirit alive. And not only keeping it alive, but also doing it very well at the same time.
Vaulting to me is an adventure. Not just the story of some weird dude, his little raccoon rat thing and a bum, but also an adventure in the film itself. The history, the desire, the passion of it all. What happens behind the camera as well as in front. And looking at all aspects of it while also trying to give its own little bit of entertainment along with it.
You know, when I first heard of this, I was not into a lot of reviewers. I discovered vaulting mainly through mutual friends in an accident. But I guess what's kind of cool is to know that the show is mainly, it's underrated as the content it produces, really. I like how I learned a lot more about underrated movies.
And at the same time, all these curiosities and trivia about the world of cinema that a movie buff like me is really into.
Some of my personal favorites, some that I haven't even heard of, but most of them they're all enjoyable. Especially when Morgan tries to see both sides of the movie through reviews. There are good ones and the bad ones.
It's a very informative show about oddball movies that really weren't well known, that one might have missed or never heard of during its time of release. It's a very wonderfully creative show that dives into every aspect of certain films and mixes in a lot of hilarious anecdotes and some trivia about the movie and production that can really enrich the audience.
Very vaulting is cool, insightful, intriguing, and I'll have my butt off most of the time.
You know, but Morgan, I think, is just a great commentator in general. You know, he's a whiz when it comes to going in depth into movies and, you know, analyzing them, making jokes about them.
Not a lot of review shows do that, and for that, I commend you for it.
For me, what makes vaulting what it is basically memories. Memories of what we remember, everything that we remember in the past, from the movies and shows that we watched to the memories we make. And when it comes to working with Morgan and everybody else that I've worked with for the show, it's all been about the great memories you make, the humor, just everything that we've done to really build up to the show has really been about making it all worthwhile in the long run.
I think my favorite memory of vaulting is the entirety of the Postman episode in particular. The ending gag with the statue, it just kills me.
Laughing at how stupid the end of the Postman was. That was pretty damn funny.
Probably the Nutcracker Fantasy was my favorite review that I remember. Watcher in the Woods. Any of the animated stuff, and I also remember Rudolph was one of my personal favorites in the introduction to vaulting.
I love the Conehead and the Watcher and the Woods review.
And I do remember that it all started since the Barney episode that I saw, and which also leads to my interest of my favorite episode, which is the top 10 most shocking thief broadcast.
And I think some of my favorite moments from vaulting easily are the M. Bison clip.
The cerebral programming. Quick, write it in here!
Come back here, you coward. We can still win this shit!
I busted my gut laughing.
I guess one of my favorite things about vaulting is whenever Morgan needs help from one of his friends, we're more than willing to help out.
And my favorite memories from working on vaulting is just really collaborating on the show between the very first episode I did with Morgan, which was Tintin Lake of Sharks, to the 100th episode, where everybody got together to just make up these ideas, work within the humor, the story of what goes on within the episodes that we've done.
Hey, doesn't it look like that giant vulture from that Nickelodeon short?
Why, thank you.
Do not remind me!
Ow!
Really, it's just all about the experiences we create all together, and that's what it's all about. It's just a great experience to go through.
I have a very unique perspective in my involvement with the show, because not only am I a fan of the show, but I'm also a guy who gets to partake in the productions of it. Every time Morgan comes through and asks me to do something for an episode of Vaulting, whether it's a visual effect or a Photoshop picture or sometimes even sound mixing, more often than not I'm willing to do it. And so I feel like I have a really intimate connection, not only with the show itself, but also the guy behind it is just a great person, you know.
It has a very rustic feel to it, so it's very homemade. But at the same time, just the content of it is very professional. It is pure magic. It balances a lot of humor and sincere moments very beautifully. And it's definitely worth all of the hard work that Morgan puts into it.
Having the opportunity to star in videos with him over the years has been absolutely wonderful. Bram Stoker's Dracula and Dark Crystal were great experiences for me, and Morgan as a director is a great guy because he knows exactly what he wants out of you.
What are you doing?
Don't judge me.
Baby! Yeah, baby! Yeah, baby!
And I haven't seen an episode where I was groaning at all. I was having fun and enjoying it.
It's a fun little conundrum of a Rubik's Cube that once you see one side, you gotta see what the others look like as well.
To Morgan, I know we've had our ups and downs here, and I know we've had some minor issues, but at the same time, we have built like a great friendship altogether and a great bonding experience that I don't think we've ever experienced before in our lives. So to Morgan, I thank you for the opportunity, the memories we've made, the great humor that we've created, the great chemistry we have all together as friends, and just having to be part of a great experience. So I thank you very much for that, my friend. You're a good guy.
All around, Morgan is one of the best friends a guy could possibly ask for. He'll always bend over backwards for you. He'll always come through for you. And it's my honor to do that with him.
I love the fact that he's reached 125 videos, and honestly, I hope he goes a lot further. It's been great working with you over the years, and your show is just doing so well, and I'm so pleased for you. So here's a Merry Christmas to you, and here's for another 125 episodes. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I hope there are many more episodes in the future.
Yeah, 125 episodes. That's a good mark. So with that said, keep up the good work, Morgan.
All right, so here's to another 125 episodes. Ciao for now, boss.
My favorite part of vaulting is all of it. I just love every bit of it. Very informative. I just love all of it.
So, to you, Morgan, congratulations on reaching episode 125. You've earned it.
What the hell is vaulting?
Would you really like to know?
Hey, bet the draw's alive! Oh, do I need to say anything else? No!
I don't remember it, so you don't have to. I do it to remind you that nostalgic gems like these still exist.
Best part of the show!
should old acquaintance be forgot and everybody cheer? We've managed somehow, friends, to make it through another year.
Let's stay up late, let's celebrate, and then count down from 10. 'Cause tomorrow when we wake up, guys, the whole thing starts again. It's New Year's Eve and I'm a beaut, dressed up in my tuxedo suit. Got a shirt and vest that are starched and pressed like new. I do, and I'm loving the view.
'Cause it's New Year's Eve and I'm looking swell with a white carnation in my lapel. Got a coat and tie and I can't deny it's true.
It's New Year's Eve and I do believe I'll hit all of the restaurants in sight. The parties at Sardi's and Old Guy Lombardi's doing the countdown tonight.
Well, it's New Year's Eve, let the party rock. Let's dance, and then when it's 12 o'clock, we'll sing them tunes and we'll pop balloons with a cheer.
Hear, hear! Bring out the confetti, we're ready. Hey, Happy New Year!
May old acquaintance be forgot on New Year's Eve, they say.
Let's give a cheer. A brand new year will soon be here to stay.
Let's drink our fill of sarsaparilla.
We're too young for champagne.
And every New Year's Eve it's time to scream and go insane.
It's New Year's Eve and it's almost here. We'll dance and swing from the chandelier, and we'll all go nuts when the ribbon cuts. We'll cheer.
When midnight comes, we'll cut a rug. We'll toast each other and kiss and hug as the shouters and screamers throw all of those streamers right here.
It's New Year's Eve, but don't you grieve, 'cause another year's headed our way. It's gonna be great 'cause we're staying up late, then tomorrow we're sleeping all day.
It's New Year's Eve, gonna have a blast.
The new one's here and the old one's past.
So forget your worry and everyone hurry, you hear.
It's okay, be a jerk, go berserk, have a Happy New
That's a big thumbs up.